Zafiropoulos asks, what is the number one thing we can do as concerned citizens for the upcoming conflict? Prep?
Okay, well, it depends on what you think the conflict is going to look like. I think the best thing you can try to do is do everything you can to try to make it not happen. The way to do that, I would argue, is to make the calculus. If the conflict that you're worried about is some sort of PRC attack on the U.S., for example, cyber or something like that, just have people in power who have made it clear that the PRC is going to pay, and that the CCP, and especially the CCP leadership in particular, is going to pay. So instead of, if you want to prepare for the inevitable, then obviously the easy hit is going to be something cyber related. But that would be a problem in case of sunspots or big environmental disaster or anything like that anyway. So coming from rural Quebec, you always want to prepare for the worst anyway. But I would, whatever effort you're going to put into that, put a percentage of effort into trying to make sure it doesn't happen in the first place. Whether that's getting involved in politics or media or talking to your friends or whatever, but don't just sit back and think that you don't have an option or a role to play.
That's good.
All right. DMW Fourth says, my question would be, how long does Canada and the USA plan on eating cookies in the bed with China?
Well,
I like that metaphor.
Yes, speaking as a Canadian, I think we're very comfortably under the duvet with a Costco-sized crate of maple cookies, and unless something dramatically changes at the next election, you can expect a lot of crumbs for a while. In terms of the U.S., what you're seeing is, yes, there's all of this happening at the federal level, but a lot of individual states are making legislation to try to get the crumbs out of their beds. So, Oklahoma, for example, trying to create a situation where the PRC can't just buy large tracts of farmland near critical infrastructure or anything. So it's not, the U.S. is much less monolithic in its response than Canada is. So there is hope that what you see in certain states in the U.S., China is very good at getting in subnational and trying to disrupt things at the local level, and there's starting to be pushback at that local level. So I wouldn't give up on the U.S. But
Canada. So like Alberta can't do something major if Trudeau or one of his ilk is.
In theory. Yeah. It is a federalized system, and Canada does have these opt-out clauses in the Constitution. Quebec has its own whole sets of regulations around a lot of different things, but then there's no, the dominant discussion in the major media, there might be concern, but there isn't, I think, an awareness of how serious the issue is and how deeply problematic it is for Canadian population, society, and economy. So I don't see the momentum. I see a lot more fight back south of the border than I see people talking north of the border, but there really isn't as much action.
It's so weird to think of the U.S. as south of the border.
Yep.
My paradigm has shifted.
Yep.
Should we do a lightning round?
Yep.
Okay,
we need an egg timer.
Yeah, that's how you do it, Shelley. You just reach in and pull one out. What?
Do.
Germ war. writes, what role might Chinese domestic opinion play in a Taiwan invasion scenario? We hear that the CCP's rule might be endangered if it ever lost Taiwan, but would it? If a Taiwan invasion became a protracted, high-casualty effort, would the loss of so many young men from one-child families create an effective backlash that could lead to a withdrawal? Or would Chinese nationalism encourage the PRC to continue the war?
So this one I will legitimately kick back to you because you guys know more about what's going on inside of China than I do.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard to get a good sense of how the Chinese people feel because, they can't freely say. We do see more and more pushback to Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party post-zero COVID.
Yeah, I mean, but like all of these things are local and small
And
right
isolated.
now and isolated. So it's hard to say. Even zero COVID, it took like 2 years before people really got fed up enough to like start go protesting in the streets. So I don't know how bad the casualties would have to get for there to be
And
like
how
a
would they
real...
even know?
Yeah, that's the other thing. If there's a way to, like, they hid how many PLA soldiers died
With the border.
And go on, yeah.
Yeah. So like how I think I wouldn't count on that as being what stops the CCP from invading.
They'll be told the war effort is going great.
I mean, kind of like what's happening in Russia in a certain sense, right? Where like for a long time, like the actual casualties, you don't actually have a good idea.
Yeah. So I think it is a mistake to bet Taiwan on there being a backlash. Our lightning round.
Okay. Biggest Thickest says,
Nice.
What would be
get it.
What would be the best approach to containing/combating CCP influence look like in relation to the global community, impeding CCP attempts to erode the sovereignty and stability of vulnerable nations, preferably without a direct or proxy conflict?
So for me, one of the main conduits for that kind of PRC influence operation is corruption. So going after corruption. And I've been somewhat shocked to find myself saying this, but I think the answer is more lawyers. So if you send, yeah. So if you go to a place like Palau, for example, where you've got this Chinese money coming in and corrupting the political process, the Attorney General, and this is a call out to anybody out there who is a lawyer. The Attorney General Palau is looking to hire lawyers who are willing to go after some of these tough money laundering cases, PRC-linked drugs cases, prostitution, influence peddling, all that stuff. Palau is beautiful. It is relatively well paid. And if you have a U.S. law degree, you're in pretty good shape because the system is very similar.
You heard it here first.
Yep. So that sort of thing, actual rule of law stuff, the PRC does not like. And just cleaning up those systems gives you the ability to then have a free press, an unbiased judiciary, more democracy, all of those things that, again, are good for humanity and bad for the Chinese Communist Party.